Vince Reinhart, I want you to explain to radio and TV what Jackson Hole really is. A bunch of PhDs listening to dead serious papers. Describe what really goes on at Jackson Hole.
It's the biggest concentration of central bankers, and central bankers love to talk amongst themselves. And so that's the opportunity for them to address what they're all concerned about. And what they're all concerned about now is just how the global economy is going to pull itself out of the pandemic. And moreover, how they are going to pull themselves out of the unconventional policies they've got themselves into.
I had the honor of sitting on the lawn years ago, Vince Reinhart, with the wonderful Alan Meltzer, with Carl Bruner, getting this summer soiree started with the Carnegie Rochester series of decades and decades ago. And it goes to the emotion of these serious events. Willem Bouter blowing up years ago at some controversial paper, the controversy of the late Marvin Goodfriend's paper of 2016. What will be the controversy this year?
I think the big issue is to find out where Jay Powell is relative to his committee. What did we learn this week? We learned that the FOMC, by and large, wants to head to the taper. Ask Rob Kaplan that later today. Wants to start slowing asset purchases. We heard it pretty firmly in the minutes, but when Jay Powell at his press conference was asked about it, he didn't seem anywhere nearly as convinced, nor did he really convey that view of his committee. So which is it? Is Jay Powell really want to head to the exit, or he doesn't? This is his opportunity, if he wants to confirm where his committee wants to go or to slow him up.
How closely, Vince, do you think that Jay Powell and the other Fed members are watching the Delta variant and the various shutdowns that we're seeing, whether it's port closures or whether it's delays to the return to office of a number of different companies?
Delta is the ace card that Jay Powell can pull out of his sleeve if he wants to slow up his committee. I think Lisa and Kayleigh had it exactly right. What have we learned over the last 18 months? Bad things can happen to good people, and they're very bad. In that environment, you want to buy insurance. That insurance includes Treasury securities, rates are low. That includes staying away from market activity. That's serious. And from a monetary policy standpoint, it brings into the question of risk management. Do you want to head for the exits if, in fact, something bad could happen in between, and you're wrong-footed?
Well,
Well,
thinking about how the Delta variant informs Fed policy, we know this Fed is prioritizing the labor market and the recovery there. That seems to be taking precedence over inflation. And we heard from the U.S. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh yesterday saying that some states who have already rolled back those enhanced unemployment benefits may need to actually put them back in place because of the Delta variant. I mean, how do you think about that factor into the jobs recovery?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and it tells you the problem of leaning forward in an uncertain time. You just may be leaning in as events turn against you. And the really interesting thing about the minutes, Kayleigh, was, in fact, they were less hierarchical about their dual objective. For the last year, it's always been employment, price stability, the inflation. The second half of the dual mandate was in the background. In the minutes, they said they were worried about, they had made they made further progress toward employment and probably were at their price stability goal. So they were bringing back that mandate. Now the question is, if they're really worried about the outlook, do they push concerns about inflation further into the background?
Just real quick, in terms of their concerns about inflation, how much do you expect them to highlight how this has been a K-shaped recovery and how the inflationary pressures that we're seeing are actually hampering the people on the lower brackets more than others?
That's what everybody forgets about the 1970s, and that is that inflation is a regressive tax. And part of it is what's that's doing to real wages at the lower end of the spectrum. Look, Jay Powell's been extremely good in framing policy more inclusively than any of his predecessors. And you've identified an opportunity for him to complain about inflation, not just because it worries the bond market czars.
Vince, I got 30 seconds. I'm so sorry. You and Carmen Reinhart wrote the paper of the summer last year, Foreign Affairs on the Pandemic Depression. Have we exited the pandemic depression?
Absolutely not. A message was rebound wasn't recovery. We still have a lot of lost output in the U.S. And importantly, what we have done is forbearance, not forgiveness. That is, at some point, all those payments is going to come due. What's going to happen then?